We've got a bizarre situation going on right now in the NRL. And while it's literally on the lips of every media outlet and content creator out there who covers the NRL, no one's pointing out the one aspect of it that I think raises the biggest question. Player sackings in the NRL and the way that we view them are one of the weirdest aspects of our sport. Here's why. Unless you've been living under a rock, which, would be acceptable, we are living in a housing crisis, I won't judge your living arrangements, you would know that the NRL currently has two high-profile situations going on with Josh Addo-Carr and Ezra. To give you a brief rundown, Addo-Carr tested positive to cocaine following a roadside drug test last month. He then allegedly misled club officials by maintaining his innocence to them and not disclosing all of the relevant facts. The Bulldogs told him 6 weeks ago that he was free to explore his options elsewhere in the hopes that he would just leave. But now reportedly they've scheduled a board meeting for Thursday in which Addo-Carr will have to convince the board why they shouldn't sack him. The Ezra situation was quite similar, but this one is a little bit tougher to comment on legally because it is still all unfolding. For that reason, I'm going to take this big flashing allegedly sign and place it just up there in the top corner. So, Ezra was involved in a car crash where his vehicle recklessly swerved into oncoming traffic. According to reports, he was driving unlicensed. He then reportedly returned a positive drug test after the crash. A mother and her young daughter in the other car were both hospitalized after the crash, as well as Ezra himself. Now, originally, I wasn't going to make videos on either Addo-Carr or Mann because I didn't really see why I would. There wouldn't have really been much value in me getting in front of a camera, grandstanding and saying, "It was wrong for Ezra to take drugs and despite not having a license get behind the wheel of a 2-ton Ford Ranger Raptor and crash into a mother and her infant child. That was a thing he shouldn't have done." Yeah, thank you, and in other news, the sky's blue. But then the other day, I was sitting down at my desk thinking about the whole reaction to each situation, and I realized something. Wait a minute, the entire way we view this thing is f***ing bizarre. Let me explain. I use Josh Addo-Carr as an example. If Addo-Carr were to remain at the Bulldogs after all this, even on a reduced salary, the reaction to that would be that it's kind of poor. The media definitely would be extremely critical of the standards that the Bulldogs set for their players if Addo-Carr was allowed to stay at the club. They evidently feel that he should be sacked. But the media are already talking very openly about the fact that the Dragons want to sign him. If they do get him, it'll be on a reduced salary, and I think the media would hype that up quite a bit as a astute, opportunistic signing by the Dragons. They would feel that Addo-Carr has been sufficiently punished and that the Dragons have got a little win. Now, I truly do not understand that, because literally the only difference between these two situations is that Addo-Carr now can't train at the Bulldogs Belmore Oval and has to go train 20 minutes away at the Dragons Kogarah Oval. He's still playing NRL, he's earning the same salary in either scenario. Why do we feel like one of these situations features justice being served and the other one simply isn't good enough? It means that effectively, the thing that we see as the crucial point in the punishment is that he's no longer allowed to play for the Bulldogs. But so you know who actually gets punished in that situation? The Bulldogs. I don't understand why as a game we all seem to accept that it's okay if he stays in the sport just as long as he's playing for literally any club other than the club he's currently playing for. What is the logic behind that? And on the flip side, as I said earlier, the Dragons would be praised for signing him at a reduced rate. Why wouldn't we call their player standards into question? Why is something that's below the behavioural standards at the Bulldogs not below the behavioural standards at the Dragons? That just makes no sense to me. And for the record, I don't think it has anything to do with these two clubs specifically. I think we could swap those two out for any two clubs in the NRL and we'd be reacting in the exact same way. It's not like the Bulldogs have this massive moral integrity and the Dragons just don't. That is one thing that I just don't understand. There is another aspect though to player punishments, and it's what the NRL does to punish players who bring the game into disrepute, separate from what their club decides to do with them. And in this case, I'm going to talk a lot more about Ezra, because there are obviously a lot of people out there, many of whom I've personally spoken to, who don't want him in the NRL anymore. They want him gone completely. And I definitely understand that view. I mean, need I remind you? It was wrong for Ezra to take drugs and, despite not having a license, get behind the wheel of a 2-ton Ford Ranger Raptor and crash into a mother and her infant child. That is like an absolutely abhorrent thing to do. In the real world, outside of rugby league, yeah, if you do something like that, you're gonna get sacked. You get a criminal record, and it becomes significantly harder to find a job at the same level that you were at before. It has an impact that changes the trajectory of your entire life. But in the NRL, while Ezra will have to take whatever punishment the NRL hands down on him, it's more than likely that he'll come back and eventually be earning $1 million a season while playing State of Origin for Queensland. That's sort of just the reality of the situation, and I think it's a reality that a lot of NRL fans really struggle to wear. And I get it, like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of justice in that. But that's a very key word here, justice. The NRL is not a judicial body, despite the fact that it very often looks like one. They do not have the legal authority to make a decision on what punishment would provide justice for a crime. In the end, the NRL are a private company. And while private companies absolutely have the right to decide who they do and don't employ, it'd be pretty naive to expect them to do it with justice. The NRL, as a private company, know the amount of money that Ezra is going to generate for them across his career. He's one of the most exciting young halves in the game. He plays an exciting, energetic brand of attacking footy. He's already got a grand final hat-trick to his name, and best of all, he's still got 12 or 13 seasons left in his career. To an independent legal body, the brand of footy that you play doesn't matter, but when it's the NRL making that decision, then yeah, it does. And that as well is something that we just kind of accept. If this had happened with another player who was, say, in his mid-20s on the fringes of first grade career, not really going anywhere, you best believe that he would be rubbed out of the game without anyone batting an eyelid. But because Mam is a star, we instead see articles like, "Will Ezra Mam be sacked? Assessing the Broncos' options to replace 5'8", as if the availability of high-quality replacements for him should have any bearing on whether or not he deserves to be sacked. That is ridiculous, but it is the reality. And while there are fans that are annoyed about that right now, to be honest, I think at the end of the day, once the whole media swirl around the situation dies down, I don't think anyone's going to care enough to force the NRL to make a tough decision. Even if you're a fan who thinks that Mam should never be employed by the NRL or any of its clubs again, you're not going to stop watching just because Mam is in the league. They know that, and so they're going to make the best business decision that they can. And to be honest, I don't really know that there is a way around that situation for us as fans. I think maybe we just have to stop putting these players on some moral pedestal and accept that they're just young guys doing a job. As with any group of over 500 men aged 18 to 35, some of them are going to have done some pretty bad things in the past. That's a societal problem, that's not an NRL problem. And I think we'd be better off if we just accepted that that's the way it is, rather than expecting the NRL or its clubs to be morally superior to any of that. But what do you think? It's a bit of a tough one to talk about, so I'd love to know what you guys have to say in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.